The 2020 election is right around the corner, and patiently waiting on the sidelines are investors, and the market's just sitting there waiting. Is he mental? It's actually been super volatile. People are worried, is there going to be another economic stimulus plan? Is there going to be more lockdowns? And the truth is, no one really knows. But what they want to understand is, based on who gets elected president, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, which is better for the stock market and what's better for their portfolio. Now, luckily, our current incumbent president, Donald J. Trump, has already answered that question for us.
Listen up, people. If you want your 401ks and your stocks, which are getting very close to all-time highs, the Nasdaq's already there, to disintegrate and disappear, vote for the radical left, the do-nothing Democrats, and corrupt Joe Biden. Massive tax hikes. They will make you very poor, very fast.
The common feeling is that the Republican president is better for the markets, less corporate taxes, and usually less regulation. But when you actually look at the market performance under each president over the last 100 years, the results might actually shock you. To get started in today's video, we're going to take a look at what's already happened in 2020, and then we're going to take a deeper dive into history to see which president and which party is better for our money. So let's get going. My fellow Americans, the first thing I'm going to do within my first 90 days as president of this great country is ask you to hit the like button and hit subscribe, because it helps with the YouTube algorithm. 2020 was a whirlwind. By the middle of February, pretty much the entire country was affected in some capacity by COVID-19. Tens of millions of people filed for unemployment, states shut down, jobs were lost or furloughed. So what did the government do? First, they cut interest rates to zero, helped stimulate the economy, stop the bleeding, stabilize the markets. The next thing they did on March 27th was pass the CARES Act, which was a $2.2 trillion relief bill that gave money to small businesses, large corporations, beefed up the unemployment, and also put money directly into people's pockets. Since April, the market has recovered quite well, but when you look at the details, it's really technology, e-commerce, and some healthcare really leading the way. Unemployment was super high back in April, and now it's half of that. However, the overall amount of people unemployed in this country is still very high and a concern for the overall economy. The sentiment of the market being that stocks are overpriced and that production is down, we notice that volatility is also on the rise as uncertainty looms around who will take the Oval Office. In order for us to get a better understanding of what possibly could happen, we're going to roll the clocks back to the early 1900s to see what history has shown in the market productivity of the S&P 500. So on this first chart, you can see that each president is labeled over its specific time frame, and the party it represents is also represented in the color that you see underneath the chart. The good news is the overall trend in this chart is up, regardless of president and regardless of political party. You just kind of see a little bit of a blip there around the Nixon time frame, and don't look at Hoover and before, because that was the Great Depression, and that's not fair. The next chart will rank the presidents based on the performance of the S&P 500 during their time in the Oval Office. You'll notice that the top two spots are held by Democrats, Clinton and Obama. And remember, Obama had to deal with the Great Recession. They actually lowered interest rates to zero, very similar to what we see today, to help stimulate the economy. If you broaden your horizon and look at the top four, it's actually split between both Democrats and Republicans. And the only negative performances occurred while a Republican was in the presidency. So basically what I'm getting so far is that the president and their political party really don't make that much of a difference in how the market performs. But what if we widen our perspective? So let's look at the House, the Senate, and the president, so all of Congress, and see if that makes any difference. We see a unified Congress, one that's either fully Republican or fully Democrat, actually outperforms division, and is a lot more consistent with very little difference between a fully Democrat or a fully Republican Congress. However, the best return actually comes when a Democratic president is in office and there's a split Congress. The return difference here is huge, especially compared to a Republican president and a split House and Senate. Now, what was that tweet from earlier? The Trump thing? So what we notice is that presidents don't move the market all that much, but political parties that control Congress as a whole might have more of an effect. But the truth is, markets can actually control who takes the Oval Office. The key to the Trump re-election, based on economics principles, is to really avoid a recession 2 years prior to any re-election. What we can also look at is the S&P 500's performance 3 months prior to that election, because it correctly predicts the winner 87% of the time. 87% of the time. 87% of the time since 1928. Fun fact that the 3-month performance of the S&P 500 prior to an election has been 100% accurate since 1984 on who will actually win the Oval Office. If the S&P performs negatively, it will be the challenger, the other party's nominee, or if it performs well, usually the incumbent will stay in office. Here's a more narrow view of how the S&P has performed really just in the month of November over the last several elections. Working our way backward, 2016, dumper. 2012, dumper. 2008, dumper. The good news, the sells were short and the recoveries were quick. The bull market continued. Remember, this year is different and COVID-19 is back on the rise, so who really knows what's going to happen? The president, Congress, political parties, they seem to have very little influence over how the market actually performs and how the economy does as a whole. The good news is America seems to win over its entire history, which is a benefit to someone like you and I, an investor, and someone looking to grow their wealth. Warren Buffett always says, never underestimate the American economy. Or something like that. Stick to the strategies that have worked for you in the past. That's the most important thing. Don't necessarily just change your strategy because there's been a change of political power or a change of political control. With that being said, as always, save, invest, and grow. Ciao, ciao.